little hoot. And now, from a lonely little corner of the Bronx,
Palestinians tried peace. The world called it war. They brought banners, the other side brought bullets. And apparently peaceful protest is only noble when it's not the Palestinians doing it. This is the story of a people who marched for freedom while the cameras marched right past them. Because who wants to cover the plot twist where the oppressed are actually peaceful? Today, we're diving into the Great March of Return, the nonviolent movement that made governments sweat more than violence ever could, and got treated like a crime scene in the process. Let's rewind to 2018, Gaza. A place with no airport, no seaport, barely any electricity, but somehow always enough Wi-Fi to facilitate an Israeli drone strike. Since 2007, Israel's imposed blockade is so tight, even fishermen need a permit. Because what kind of occupier wouldn't want to micromanage your fish? So on March 30th, 2018, tens of thousands of Palestinians did the unthinkable. They protested peacefully. No guns, no bombs, just people gathering along the separation fence to demand the right to return to their homes that their families were kicked out of in 1948. You know, that guaranteed UN Resolution 194? Yeah, that's right. According to this resolution, any people living under the occupation of another government had the guaranteed right to return to their homes. And guess who helped write that resolution? Yeah, the good old US of A. America. Writing the moral playbook and then setting it on fire when Israel breaks it. Cue the hypocrisy. What happened next? Over 18 months, more than 200 Palestinians were killed. Journalists, medics, children, by live fire from Israeli snipers perched like hawks on a hill. 36,000 Palestinians were injured, many by live fire. And the official Israeli explanation? Well, they were near the fence. Right. And Rosa Parks was near that bus driver. One sniper shot targeted a journalist, Yassir Mataja, clearly marked as press. So let's be crystal clear. Those snipers weren't panicked teenagers in the fog of war. They were perched on hills using scopes, picking targets. This was deliberate. The Israeli army admitted most killed were unarmed. So let me get this straight. They shot hundreds of unarmed civilians and then told the world, well, they could have been a threat. That's like a serial arsonist seeing someone smoking inside of a building and saying, well, that building was already on fire. Why the silence? Because before social media opened our eyes, Palestinian suffering had been a low-priority alert on the world's moral radar. In the U.S. view, if you're brown, Muslim, and get shot by an ally's gun, you become background noise. Now, unarmed protesters were met with tanks, drones, and soldiers with itchy trigger fingers and a Geneva Convention allergy. Over 200 Palestinians were killed, thousands injured, for walking near a fence, just to say we're human. You know, your average threat to democracy. The Great March of Return was proof that Palestinians can protest peacefully and still be met with deadly force. It shattered the Western fairy tale that if only they weren't so violent, the world would listen. Spoiler alert. The world did listen, and then went back to their champagne brunch. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The moral outrage in international politics is not about what is right, what is wrong. It's about who's holding the gun and whether they're invited to your country's 4th of July barbecue. So the next time someone says, why don't the Palestinians try peaceful protest? Tell them that they did. For 86 weeks straight. And the world's response was to hand the shooters more ammunition. But hey, freedom isn't free. It costs at least $3.8 billion a year in U.S. military aid. And apparently, it also costs the truth. But wait, you say, Gaza's controlled by Hamas. They're the bad guys. What about the West Bank? Isn't that where the good Palestinians live? Ah, sweet child. West Bank Palestinians have been protesting for decades. You just haven't heard about it. Because if a Palestinian chants freedom in a forest and CNN doesn't cover it, did it really happen? Let me introduce you to Asenur Egi, a 26-year-old Turkish American. She traveled to Palestine to join the International Solidarity Movement, a group famous for saying, hey, maybe don't bulldoze people's homes. She attended a peaceful prayer protest on a hill near a settlement. She wasn't throwing rocks. She wasn't holding a gun. She wasn't even yelling. She was praying. And she was shot in the head by the Israeli occupation forces. Unprovoked, unarmed. And then Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, whose moral spine is apparently made of overcooked linguine, said, no one should be shot for attending a protest. Right. And no one should fund the guy doing the shooting with $830 million taxpayer dollars 2 weeks later. But here we are. This isn't new. Back in 2003, Rachel Corrie, a 23-year-old American, stood in front of a Palestinian home in Gaza to stop it from being bulldozed. She was wearing a fluorescent vest, holding a megaphone and yelling, I'm right here. The Israeli army ran over her anyway, then claimed they didn't see her. Apparently, in Israel, bulldozers come with blind spots the size of human rights trees. No one was punished, no investigation, just a whoops and a shrug. The irony is so thick you could pave a runway with it. The same U.S. that sends billions in military aid to Israel every year is also the country that lectures the world on human rights and the rule of law. It's like the Marlboro Man would lecture you about smoking. Back in 2017, Bethlehem, it's Ramadan. Palestinians lay out prayer rugs and block traffic peacefully. What does the Israeli army do? They roll in tanks to stop people from praying. That's not security. That's religious cosplay with bullets. And when some teens throw stones, which, by the way, should not be considered terrorism unless you're Goliath, Israel responded with live ammunition and tear gas. People were shot. A woman ran barefoot away from the scene, and a young boy ran after her to return her shoes. Tell me again who the terrorist is here. Now let's talk about Sheikh Jarrah, where Israel law allows Jews to reclaim homes from before 1948. But Palestinian? Nope, nada. Zero recourse. So when the Shamesna family was evicted from their East Jerusalem home after 53 years, a group of activists camped on their rooftop. What did they have for protection? Plastic lawn chairs. Meanwhile, the Israeli state had soldiers, tanks, helicopters, and American-made bombs. Because it's both sides, right? When Palestinians resist nonviolence, they're ignored, shot, bulldozed, blamed. When Americans die standing next to them, we get a brief statement from the State Department, followed by another billions of dollars in bombs. And while wringing your hands about the situation, Israel continues to destroy the Palestinian people with our money. Here's the thing. It's not about both sides. It's about what is just. Nonviolence resistance does work. In the UK, Palestine Action successfully shut down weapons factories supplying Israel nonviolently. You know what they used? paint, chains, courage. Not tanks, not airstrikes, and not lies. And that's what it's going to take. Courage. On the streets, in the press, and yes, in Congress, where moral courage goes to die. So the next time someone asks you, why do the Palestinians only understand violence? Ask them, so why do they keep showing up to pray, march, and speak out peacefully, only to be shot in the head? Why do they keep resisting, without weapons, without armies, without a single vote, in a country funding their oppression? Because deep down, even under occupation, they believe in something bigger than tanks and barbed wire. They believe in justice. The Great March of Return shattered the myth that Palestinians don't try peaceful protest. They did, for 86 weeks straight. And the world's response? More ammo for the shooters and the same old diplomatic doublespeak. Freedom might be free, but truth? That might cost you billions in U.S. taxpayer aid.
For little hoots!